Welcome to another episode of the Troy Francis podcast with me, Troy Francis, coming at you, as always, from London town. Now, this podcast is being recorded early. It should go out on Monday, the 1st of October. So if you're listening to it on day one, it should be Monday, 1st of October, 2019. And if you're listening to it further down the line, then welcome as well. But yes, this is going out on Monday the 1st of October, but I'm recording it a little bit early because I'm going to be away next week. I'm going away to somewhere very sunny, hopefully, for a few days. And so I need to get this recording done and in the can before I go, because I'm on my hollybobs, as we call it in the UK, which is very exciting. So I'm doing some stuff now for next week. Getting this one queued up. So on that note, and the reason that I specify the date is because in my sort of news summary section for the beginning of this, if you like, I need to say that on Monday the 1st of October, John from Modern Life Dating's course, Body Language Mastery, the Q3 enrollment is still open now. I've been putting out some content regarding body language and regarding John's course because I will actually be tutoring on it in his live webinars. So if you're listening to this on Monday the 1st of October 2019, then you still have a chance to enroll for the Q3 enrollment of that course. So I'll leave a link below. I won't talk in great detail about it now, but it's a fantastic course. It's got really great in-depth video with a female model demonstrating female body language. It's got webinars 3 times a week with people like me. I think Rollo Tomasi's going to be on it, Rich Cooper, Ryan Stone, John, obviously from Modern Life Dating, other guys like that. So that's going to be great. And you also get a free Facebook group as well. So it's fantastic stuff, and I would urge you to jump on it if you haven't already. So head to the link below and get involved, and I look forward to seeing you in the webinars. Okay, aside from that, business as usual for me, lots and lots of work. Really focusing on YouTube at the moment because I'm enjoying it and it's starting to get some traction. I'm nearly on the 1,000 subscribers that I said I would get before the end of September. I look to be on course to get there before the end of September, which is great. But if you haven't, and this podcast is obviously going out, you might be listening to it on YouTube. So if so, please do hit the subscribe button and hit the notifications bell as well, so you know when I put out new videos. But basically, I'm putting out this podcast every Monday, and then I'm putting out about 3 videos a week, generally speaking, advice videos about different topics which go towards just making you an effective man in modern society, basically. So really enjoying that. I am writing my novel as we speak, so that is going on now, and there'll be more news on that later. And everything else is going very well, very tickety-boo, as they say. So what I want to talk about today is a concept called mental point of origin. And I think this is really key in terms of being an effective, independent man, if you like, of being somebody who lives their own life unapologetically, who lives the life they want, not the life they think they should, as my phrase goes, and who just basically puts themselves first. And I think guys tend to forget about this a lot of the time, and that's not a good thing. That's when you fail to make yourself your own mental point of origin, then you're doing yourself a disservice, because other people are certainly out there putting themselves as their mental point of origin, and if you don't, then you are liable to get left behind. And it is also, gentlemen, incredibly detrimental in your relationships with the opposite sex, because, and there's a bit of a contradiction seemingly here, because although women would like somebody to be devoted to them undyingly and, falling into their arms and just cooing love songs the whole time, that's sort of on the surface what we think they want, and maybe even what they think they want. But underneath it, what they actually want is a guy who is ruthlessly going about his own business and looking after his own interests. So, first of all, I need to credit Rollo Tomasi of The Rational Male for coining this phrase. At least I think he coined this phrase. If he obtained it from elsewhere, then apologies, and I'm happy to credit whoever it came from. But I do think it was Rollo, because he has an essay back in 2014 called Mental Point of Origin, and certainly that's where I got the term from. I don't know if it had been floating around before then, but let's assume I believe that Rollo devised the term. So, and in his essay on his blog, which you should read, and I'll link to it below, he talks first about a co-worker that he had, a female co-worker, who was a 35-year-old lady, a Japanese lady, I think, attractive, who was seemingly fixated with this guy. Now, the guy, I think it was a long-distance type relationship, but the guy, and she showed pictures of the guy to Rollo Tomasi, who confirmed that this dude was, kind of average looks, not particularly built, not particularly tall, just kind of like an average, slightly schlubby-looking dude. And yet, this attractive woman was fixated on him. And Rollo described, Rollo explained that the reason for her devotion to this guy, and she was really, really obsessed with this guy. She would make gifts for him. She would send him different things. And the guy was pretty indifferent to this stuff, really. He was just off doing his own thing, and not really sort of like kind of like kowtowing or treating this as anything out of the ordinary. And Rollo put down his the reason that she was fascinated with him, according to Rollo, was because he held himself as his own mental point of origin. That is, his concern was primarily for himself and his own life and his own ambitions. His concern was not with her, and she was aware of this on a subconscious and probably a conscious level as well, and that just fueled her attraction for him. Why would that be? Why? And as I say, this guy was kind of a bit schlubby, not particularly impressive, not a sort of built kind of Andrew Tate type character, but actually just a very, very average sort of dude. And yet, nevertheless, he still had this magical effect on this girl. Okay, so what does this mean for you? Well, I want to say two things here. The first thing is that, yes, absolutely, you should make yourself your own mental point of origin. But secondly, you shouldn't do it as a game tactic. You shouldn't do it in the hope that it's going to improve your chances with women. Because if you do it with that mindset, then you've already contradicted yourself, haven't you? Because already you're actually not putting yourself first. You're actually not making yourself your mental point of origin. You're making these imaginary girls who perhaps you might end up getting with as your mental point of origin, and you're pretending that you're your mental point of origin. So that's a mistake. And I've seen guys do this or try to do this. And it doesn't work. You're going to get caught out. It's just going to backfire on you. So you need to make yourself your own point of origin, and then you need to allow everything else to flow from that. So it's effectively what you're saying to the world and the universe is, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to do this, X, whatever it is, and let the chips fall where they may. If girls are attracted to that, then fine, but equally, if they're not, then I don't care, because I'm going to do this anyway. And that's the kind of attitude that you need to have. Now, Rollo then goes into a bit of a discussion about what he means by mental point of origin. And he talks about the way, this girl that he works with regards the dude that she was fixated on as being, I quote, alpha as fuck. Rollo says, on Tinder, this guy will be a left swipe 100% of the time. His attitude is indifferent alpha, but he's self-concerned. This girl idolizes him. So strong language here. This girl idolizes him. And Rollo then goes on to write about self-concern without self-awareness. Now, if you look back into Rollo's archives on Rational Mail, you'll see a post about a dude called Corey Worthington, who he made a very famous and great post about several years ago. And he held this dude, Corey Worthington, up as an example of an alpha Buddha. This was a guy who basically had, I think it was some sort of weird news story where this guy basically had a party at his parents' flat, and a load of people came in and they wrecked the joint. And this gained some news coverage, and the guy was interviewed by a female newsreader actually on the news. And what was striking about his appearance was the fact that he, was the fact that he just didn't give a damn. He was what was I going to say? He was being questioned about this kind of criminal thing he'd done, and the interviewer was saying, "Well, do you have any remorse? Do you feel bad?" And he was just like completely nonplussed by this. He's just like, "No, don't give a shit." Good-looking guy, well put together. And Rollo was holding this up as a sort of an example of alpha. Now, obviously, guys were offended by this. We had guys who were, extremely perturbed by the notion that this dude could be considered an alpha because he was so anti the usual things that come along with that alpha package. He was not a fine, upstanding citizen at all. In fact, completely the opposite. He was not a leader of men in the usual sense. He was probably you could say his behaviour had been amoral, if not immoral. A bit of a waster, and really, if you imagine the ultimate alpha as being the sort of the upstanding military dude who does everything right, this guy was the complete opposite of that. And yet, nevertheless, he held a sort of an alpha Buddha, as Rollo calls it, sense about him, and that will be extremely attractive to women. So what really all this comes down to is that is a lack of self-awareness. So that dude Corey Worthington, and also this guy that Rollo talks about, who the girl that he works with is fixated with, they're self-concerned, but they're also not self-aware. That is to say, they don't really think about the effect of their behaviour or their removal of themselves or not from society on other people. They only think about themselves. And it's that sort of combination of self-concern without self-awareness that is really, really powerful. And then Rollo goes on to describe how he, during his sort of rock star phase, he was at his most alpha, but he was also at his most unself-aware, or his least self-aware, I suppose, in the sense that he just, he just acted in his own way, in the way that he wanted. He did his own thing, and he didn't even think about it or the effect that it might have in any way on other people. So this is kind of what you need to get towards. And Rollo finishes up the article by talking about frame, and of course this does very much fit into this arena of frame, because after all, doing your own thing effectively equates to holding the frame. So where does all this leave us? What's all this sort of leading to? Well, as I say, you need to be your own mental point of origin, and you need to do that before you start thinking about girls. I mean, okay, so here we've got the problem, right? And let me think about this. For me, it's slightly changed because I'm in my 40s now. I have a girlfriend, but also, I suppose, you get to a point where that sort of urgent requirement for sex, if you like, or that sort of the urgent chasing of girls becomes a little bit lessened, at times. And I'm with a girlfriend, so for me it's slightly different. But what guys need to balance, particularly guys who are younger and coming into this, is the thought that on the one hand, yes, okay, I want to meet attractive girls, I want to improve my sex life, I want to maybe have a prolific dating life, or I want to meet lots of different girls, or get into a relationship or whatever it is. But they have to balance that with the thought that, well, okay, that's one side of me, but really the more important side of me is what the hell I'm actually doing with my life. Now, again, for me, it's really, for a long time, it's been fairly straightforward. I am a writer. I am somebody who loves to write. That's my ambition, which is why I'm writing a novel at the moment. So I'm doing all this other stuff. And also, beyond that, I'm also a creative person. So I like to make these podcasts. I really enjoy making videos at the moment, actually. trying to improve my ability on camera and all of those things. But this is marketing. Fundamentally what it all comes down to is that I'm a writer and I create content. And actually there's some writing behind the videos and there's some writing behind the podcast as well. So it all kind of comes back to that same thing of creating written content that I then put out to the world in different ways. Now, that has been with me really all my life. And so making that central to my life has not been that difficult. It's actually been a bit of a no-brainer. And for many years, I was in as people may know, I was in corporate work. I had an office job, a sort of a cubicle job. I was pretty well paid. I was reasonably successful in it to the extent that I ended up buying 2 properties, and I had a pretty good lifestyle, living in quite near to the centre of London, which is a very expensive place to live, and having a pretty damn good life. But it wasn't making me happy. It wasn't satisfying me on a deeper level, because clearly in that scenario you are not your own mental point of origin. Now, then we get into the realm of self-employment, and should one be self-employed? And I would say absolutely yes. If there's any way, and there is a way, but anyone can do it, that you can get yourself into the position where you're self-employed, then you absolutely certainly should, because not only do we want to avoid being under the thumb of women, if you like, but we also want to avoid being under the thumb of employers, and also governments as well, by the way. I mean, this is in all aspects of life, but if we keep it to sort of sex and work for the most part, working for yourself is a bit of a no-brainer once you start to go down this path. Once you start to read the kind of material that we talk about on this channel, and you start to realize there are other ways of life, then yes, self-employment is key. But here's the thing: it's all grounded in being your own mental point of origin. Now, for me, the work has to be the most important thing. And I'm not saying, I'm on Twitter all the time. I'm tweeting out, funny things and bullshit and trolling and all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying this is a great work of art. The work of art will be the fiction that I write. But nevertheless, my creative output, in whatever form it comes, must be my first port of call, if you like, because that is an expression of myself. That is an expression of my personality, of my inner self, of my soul, if you want to get a bit esoteric about it. So that's got to be my first concern. Now, after that, yes, relationships with my girlfriend, with women, absolutely incredibly important, of course, and we all want that, whether you want to spin plates or you want to be with a monogamous partner, girlfriend, try out an LTR for a while or whatever it is. Sure, that's important, but it can't be the most important thing, because when you make that the most important thing, then it becomes a bit of a turn-off to the girl. And I've experienced this in my life. I really have. I mean, I'm getting on a bit now. I'm in my 40s, as you know. Back in the mists of time when I was in my 20s, I had very needy relationships with girlfriends where I would make them my mental point of origin. I would make them my higher power, if you like, as we say in 12-step recovery. And that's a bad thing to do, man. It's a bad thing to do for you mentally, because it's putting you in a subordinate state, but it's also a bad thing for you to do tactically, because girls don't respect it. Girls really, really don't respect it. They don't like it at all. They find it a turn-off. They find it probably, when you take it to the nth degree, they find it repulsive. And that's why in Rollo's essay we have this whole thing about the dude who, he's not that great looking, he's not anything special, but he's doing his own thing, and a girl idolizes him. Rollo says he idolizes him. Incredible, And I would like to think, although I'm not really qualified to say this, you would have to ask people who know me, people who've been in relationships with me and things, but I would like to think that part of my attractiveness for women, part of the reason that girls have been attracted to me, and some very attractive girls have been attracted to me, has been because of this quality of being my own mental point of origin. Because if I look at myself objectively, I'm not the greatest looking guy on the planet. I'm not the richest guy on the planet. I'm not, I'm quite good socially, but I had to learn to do that. And actually, I'm a bit of an introvert. I'm not the most athletic dude. I mean, there's so many things where, you could say, well, I don't measure up to this guy or that guy, and yet, I've had great success, and I think part of that is because I'm very much my own person, and I think people can sense that when they interact with me. I think girls can sense that when they interact with me. In fact, I know that they can, and I think that sort of increases the attraction levels, which otherwise might not be absent, And I'm not saying all this to blow smoke up my own arse or to try and impress you or anything. It's just that what I'm saying is if I can be like this, then anybody can, because I came from a pretty unremarkable background as a fairly unremarkable guy in many ways, and yet I've managed to sort of carve out a space for myself, not only with women, but also in the online space as well. And I think the way that you do that is by, making yourself your mental point of origin, putting yourself first, and not being afraid also to, display that, not being afraid for, and people have to know about it. And I think this is where, when Rollo talks about his, where are we? This idea about lack of self-awareness. Part of what you're doing, say in online business, for example, I have to proceed with a certain lack of self-awareness. And there's ways you can, so on Twitter, for example, say I put out 10 posts a day on Twitter, and I'm saying some stuff. I know people are going to disagree with it. I know people are going to think I'm, crazy. And sometimes I'm mischievous and I up the ante a little bit to piss people off because it's funny and it amuses me or whatever. But if I was too self-aware, if I was sitting there going, oh my God, if I type this, then what is so-and-so going to think? Then I'd never get any work done. And you have to be prepared to go out on a limb. And it's very similar in the sexual marketplace as well. You have to think, well, say I had a business that was it was all about bird spotting or something. When people go with binoculars and they go and look at birds. I think Delicious Tacos is into this, so it's maybe having a bit of a resurgence of cool. But say I had a business about that, and I think, well, I'm meeting this girl on Friday night, and she's going to think I'm a geek or a dork because I'm interested in bird watching, and I've built this whole business around it. Well, I'm sorry, but fuck that. You need to. You're being too self-aware. In another way of saying this, and it kind of keys in with something I said in my last podcast, is you're being too unselfish. You need to be more selfish. So another way of putting Rollo's self-concern without self-awareness, you could say, well, you've got to be self-concerned and selfish. In other words, you just don't, not only do you put yourself first in everything, but also you just don't give a shit what other people think. And that, my friends, is the ultimate way of the alpha. In my view, that is more key to what being an alpha is than, being able to lift a small truck or being jacked and ripped and 7 foot tall and all of those kinds of things. I mean, yeah, sure, those are external indicators of being an alpha, and there's nothing, those are great things. Don't get me wrong, but ultimately, I think what really makes a guy alpha is his ability to go his own way, his ability to live by his own rules, his own program. And I think that is the key thing. It's this self-concern, it's this making yourself your own mental point of origin in everything that you do, in every aspect of your life. And then, as I said earlier, let the chips fall where they may. Some people are going to get on board with it, other people aren't. That's up to them. You're on your own road, you're blinkered, you're on your own tunnel, you're not self-aware, you're selfish, you're moving forward. Other people can join you or not join you. And that's what will make you successful, but it's also what will make you attractive, because people and women are attracted to that. Because who wants to be with some dude who's kind of all over the place? Who wants to be with some dude who gets battered around by the wind? I mean, women want to be with a guy who is strong, bold, determined, and pushes forward on his path. And that, my friends, is what you need to do. But as I said at the top, you're not doing it for women, you're doing it for yourself, because otherwise you lose. But in the end, you are more important than yourself, because it's your life. You're the one who's with you from birth to death. Everybody else comes and goes. You have to make yourself your own mental point of origin. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. I'll leave it there for today. Remember to get on board with Modern Life Dating's fantastic body language course, link below. Do get my bundle of 11 books on dating, which is called Renegade Dating Blueprint. You can get it for just $39 right now, link below. Get on my daily email list, emails 5 times a week. Probably not this week because I'm on holiday, but generally speaking, emails 5 times a week, link below. And finally, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and we're going to start live streaming very soon on there. So I look forward to that. I hope you enjoyed the show. Speak again soon. Bye-bye.